Hello, everyone. Just going to let the waiting room file in as we get going here. I'm Benjamin Lindsay, managing editor at Backstage. We, of course, are being joined today by Brendan Hunt and Jason Sudeikis, the writers, producers, stars of Ted Lasso on Apple TV+. Big fans of both of them here, so it's such a treat to have their ear for this Zoom webinar. But thank you, both of you, for joining us. This is great.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, sure.
Of course. Yeah, I've been a big fan of the show since it first came out this summer, and I feel like it made for the perfect quarantine binge. I'm sure that's not the first time you've heard that. But before we get started down that track, where in the world are you guys calling in from, and how have you been holding up just these last few months?
I'm in Los Angeles, in the Silver Lake, Echo Park-ish sort of area. I guess holding up okay. It's been nice to have work to do. We've been writing season 2 pretty much every day, and that has been a good distraction.
So the writer's room in quarantine, yeah.
Yeah. It's weird doing a writer's room in quarantine because it's over Zoom instead of the cumulative energy of being around a table with everybody, but it's worked out all right.
Not bad. And are you making your way over to London soon? Is season 2 plans filming? Is that actually underway for top of next year, or?
Yeah, early January. Boy, that's soon.
Yeah. Can't believe we're already at Thanksgiving. It's pretty wild. Great. Well, just to take us all the way back to the beginning of Ted Lasso, I think the origin story for this series is pretty wild, just considering it's based off of the NBC sports commercials that we know from a handful of years ago. So just for our audience today who is unfamiliar with that, give us the story and what the gestation process was like between having that character and then bringing it to a full-fledged series. What was that process actually practically like?
Right. I was approached by NBC Sports to do this commercial. The ad company had 4 or 5 different ideas. One was, a coach, like an American coach, a football coach coaching soccer, and it was more in the style of like a yelling and screaming coach. But that was the premise that I was like, oh, that's fun. That'll be silly fish out of water style. And then, but they wanted to play it more yelly, screamy, like based on characters I'd done on SNL at that point, and I just sort of had a different feel of what it should be. But I knew who to call to help me out with it. Now Brendan here and our buddy Joe Kelly. And so, yeah, we went over there with like a page of ideas, like a single page of just ideas. And we didn't realize it was $500,000 campaign. People were really nervous about what we were doing. We'd shoot a section, fill up a card. We had a great director named Marty. What was Marty's last name? Do you remember?
Denson, I believe.
What's that?
Denson?
Marty Denson, yeah, who had done a ton of commercials. Second City guy from Toronto, actually, and he just rolled the camera, and we would just improvise these things. Brendan and I did, and Joe would come up with ideas, and then and then when they would change cards, the 3 of us would get into the van and play like this tiny version of Settlers of Catan, and outside executives were like, what's next? We don't know what they're shooting next. Like it was very. We didn't know that was going on. I think my manager, who was with us at the time, right, told us that. Yeah. And he was like, they're really nervous out there. I was like, all right, well, why? It seems to be fine. So anyway, that commercial ended up coming out in 2013, summer of, and people really, really liked it. And because they really liked it, both the soccer fans and football fans, I think it may have even won some friggin' trophies or something for someone, like advertising things. We got to make a second one. But we knew we couldn't go over to London. So then in making the second one, we were kind of like, well, it'd be pretty funny. The whole premise of that first one is he gets hired erroneously and then within 3 days gets fired. And so the second one was kind of like, okay, well, let's keep that mythology going, if you will. And he will have, but he loved it. He fell in love with the sport. He fell in love with the culture. And I think that was the first thing that unlocked, at least I know in my head, his sort of enthusiasm. Like a weeble wobble, Chumbawamba. He gets knocked down, but he gets back up again. And there's elements of what the character is now on the show that is deeply rooted in getting to do that second one and trying to find a way to heighten it. Because at SNL, the way I always attacked personally, for me, a recurring character was like not just go through the give it, some form of evolution, whether it be in the style of jokes, and don't just turn it into a Mad Libs. So it was like, okay, yeah, keep that going, and it'll be that. And then a year after that, at some point, my partner Olivia said, you should do it as a TV show or as a movie. And I don't think we had talked about it prior to that, because she was like, you guys have so much fun doing it. Like, it's fun to, it's a fun character to improvise in because it's such a specific point of view. And so then Brendan and Joe came out to Brooklyn, where Liv and I were living there, and have, and we spent a week like outlining a pilot, and then outlining like a 6-episode arc, just to see if it had legs, or maybe it was only 5-minute pieces. Maybe it's a 90-minute movie. We didn't know. And so we just sort of started telling each other these stories. And I would say the bulk of what we had in there is what is the show. I haven't re-looked at that document in a long time, but I know elements of it. And it was certainly in my head, what the vibe of the show was what it ended up being. Like, that was always the idea, to me, at least. And then, then it sat on a shelf for a while, or, not who has shelves anymore. It sat in a computer, and because Liv and I had kids. Joe Kelly created the show Detroiters with 3 of our other buddies for Comedy Central, and Brendan just practiced jazz. We all had, life went on. And then 2018, I guess, Bill Lawrence stepped to me and with an idea for a show that wasn't quite right for us, but he's like, if you have any other ideas, I'd love to know them. And I said, well, what about, you ever see these commercials we did called Ted Lasso? Yeah, I love those commercials. The soccer coach? Yeah. I go, we have an idea for that. And then here we are, almost 3 years later, talking about it.
Wow. And what a rare opportunity to kind of take a character that was initially kind of in the sketch space, someone who was meant to just drop in, make a joke. It's a 30-second ad. And then to get to build that backstory, build the character arc. I'm curious how that measures out.
I will say this. Sorry, one second. That, the commercials were long form. They were like 4.5 minutes. So they're like, little short, just, it wasn't quite as simple as like, here's the product, and that's the product, and here's the joke. There were like little narratives, but they cut them into 30 seconds as well. I know. So just for clarity.
No, perfect. Thanks for clarifying. But I would love to hear, just given, Jason, your experience on SNL, Brendan, I know that you have also experience in the improv, the sketch world, where you're building these characters kind of on the fly. Is there a hint of that kind of backstory that you're dealing with in that space, or is this kind of a unique character building process versus what the initial iteration of Ted Lasso was?
I'm not sure I understand the question completely.
Like, to the degree that it has like a history and such, like
I mean, to really flesh it out and because Ted Lasso, now we know him as a father, we know him as someone whose marriage is on the rocks. The backstory to these characters is so significant. So does that compare to the sketch roles of your past?
For me, again, the reason that I know I wouldn't have done the show without it having something else going on below the surface, because otherwise I find that work can feel and end up being, regardless of its reception, just inconsequential. Like, then it's just cotton candy, and cotton candy is great, but it's just not, I don't make it. Like I don't eat it as often as I used to. My kids love it, but they're idiots. So like, when Olivia said you should do it as a show, I remember her, I asked her about this recently because I didn't remember that she said that. Brendan reminded me of that, like when we started doing press, and she was like, yeah, we were at dinner, she said, and I immediately was like, okay, yeah, but why is he happy all the time? Like, there's gotta be something going on. Or like, no, why did he take the job? Like, what's the hook there? It's such a broad concept. And I just started to riff, his marriage is ending and he needs to give her space. Like, it was like, I just sort of riffed those dramatic elements of it too there to give it like an emotional foundation, as opposed to just being a show that's just like, jokes on goal, just boom, 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 boom. Like, it had to be rooted in that from the get-go in order for me to be like excited about it. Like, at that stage in my life, doesn't mean, when I was 25, I'd be like, yeah, we'll just, just boom, 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 joke. But here is like, no, what are we saying? What's it about? And so that's what it was with Ted. And then if I think I understand your question, then it was just a matter of figuring things out. I mean, we're using the plot, you know, a famous plot in movies of someone being set up to fail. You know, it's the producers, it is Major League, you know, which we give a few homages to. But again, Major League is a movie from the 80s where we weren't quite as, woke. I don't know what you want to say. It always compelled me, you know, why would the woman want to tank the team? She just can't be, you know, we're not all one thing. You know, we're not monoliths. Different people are different people for different reasons. And so it's like, you know, we got to see why she wants to do this.
Yeah.
And so that was rooted on, that's based on a run-in that I had with a person that I think was a horrible person, but then I saw her in an elevator being very vulnerable and she was embarrassed by it. And I wasn't. I finally saw her and I just always held on to that and be like, oh, wow, that shark has a heart, you know, and so then it just fell through. Like those were your male and female leads. So then we just always talked about what else is going on in people's lives.
Yeah. No, I love that because it's so, as you say, this easily could have been joke, half-hour comedy, fish out of water. I think that's the harder version of a show to do. That's all invention. For what it's worth, for people watching, like, you know, like it makes it easier when people are real. Mm-hmm. Well, that's why people are connecting with it, because at the end of the day, you're not leaning into the cringe factor too much. You're not leading into the slapstick joke. You made a nice show, and you care about the characters. And I love just having that inside scoop on how those decisions were made.
Brendan, am I missing anything? I mean, I know, you know, when we finally got into the actual making of the thing, you know, Bill, you know, we'd write up qualities of the people, and you know, I just sort of knew what everybody's shit was, you know, like. And those are broad things but you still, you know, you gotta leave space for God to walk into the room, as Quincy Jones says. And so, you know, you hire a staff to have it be informed. Ted's collective consciousness is the collectiveness, consciousness and reference level of the room. You know what I mean? It's, which is a little bit of a unicorn, but not really. Like, you know, I not with the people I keep company with. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of those people, Brendan. Tell us how you first came to be working together, you and Jason. I know that you share credits on the screen dating back several years, but in terms of writing partners and writing collaborators in this sense, has that been a long-standing relationship? Is it new with Ted Lasso?
I'd say the first time we were writing together was probably at Boom Chicago, which is a improv sketch theater in Amsterdam, where I was there for about 5 years, and Jason was in and out, coming to see his girlfriend and then fiance at the time, Kate Cannon, and then Jason eventually came for like a few months, and as the story goes, just insinuated himself into the cast without being asked, and which we were all very fortunate for, frankly.
Thank you gets you in the places you'd never imagine.
It's all about manners, guys. Just be polite. But first meeting Jason was also at a show. I was in an improv group called Comedy Sports in Chicago, which had this very tiny theater called the Turnaround Theater, because it was literally in a bus turnaround. Like CTA buses just came around it all day. And in the back, we had this little patch of grass where we would warm up. So we're out there like 10 minutes before a show doing our zip-zap-zops in our baseball pants. And suddenly we have to get out of the way because like an 82 Volvo is coming in the turnaround and pulling onto our tiny patch of grass. And we're like, what the heck's going on? And it was two guys from Kansas City Comedy Sports who we hadn't been told these guys were coming, but someone had known but not told us. And these guys, Jason and our friend Ed Goodman, who is has Sideshow Bob red hair, come out of this car just weary as hell. They're carrying our mountains, and you've driven straight from Kansas City all day to get to this show in time. Arrived, 5 minutes before showtime. As the introduction's like, hey, I'm Jason, I'm Ed, and Brendan, and you're meeting everybody else. And okay, let's do a show. And they were terrific, you know, and like we had a reasonably high standard of good shows, and for two guys to come in right away and seamlessly work their way into it was notable, and was like, these guys are great. I like those guys. I hope I know them for a long time, and I have.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago's no joke. That scene is kind of where comedians go to cut their teeth, really.
Yeah.
Well, actors and creators are always told, especially on the early end of their career, to find your tribe, find like-minded creatives to to work with, collaborate with, to bounce ideas off of. How important has that been for both of your respective careers, to kind of that collaborative spirit? You're never doing it alone, I imagine.
Yeah, I've only gravitated towards ensemble work, and I think it comes from playing sports growing up. I played basketball, was my big sport. I played it, growing up, high school, college for a little bit, until I was like, what am I doing? I love something else, and that was, I bridged my world of sports to comedy through, as Brendan mentions, this thing called comedy sports. And so, yeah, ensemble arts is where it's at for me. I love having a common goal, and the collective mind is and the alchemy of such an ensemble. I know I never gravitated towards stand-up. I think it's an absolutely wonderful medium of comedy. I'm sure there's part of me that was scared shitless. I preferred to succeed and fail like side by side with someone. And because there's always like a level, like I love sketch comedy is probably my favorite, because when you do a live sketch show, and I don't mean SNL, I mean like in a theater or something like that, but something like Second City, or Groundlings. I just love the blackout as much as I love when the lights come up, because the blackout is absolute potential. Like, you don't know what the light's going to come up on. It's going to move to a different thing. Now that happens in stand up, I'm talking about this, then I'm talking about that, sure. But something about, this is what they thought it's going to be. Now, improv has that too, inherently, by the fact that they're making it up all the time. But, great improv is great. Good improv is improv, and bad improv is also kind of great. But like, but there's something about putting up and shutting up. Like, this is what I think, this is what I feel, this is what I think is great. We bought this wig, we bought this hat, we bought this jacket, and we're going to play this guy. And we think this is funny. Do you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or yes, great, blackout, next one, all right. Like,
absolutely. Well,
in both those instances, I'd say in improv and sketch both, it's like you're really putting a big matzo ball out there, but you're doing it together. And so when you find out that you have succeeded, either through a sketch that you've been crafting and finally shown to an audience, or an improv show that really landed that particular night, like, well, this magic happened because of all of us. Mm-hmm. And that, that just leaves, a permanent mark on your DNA, I think, artistically. And going forward, it's just, because like going back to, that first Lasso commercial where it's just, me and Jason and Joe shooting the shit over Catan in the trailer. We're just naturally in that space of we're making this, we're going around, we're figuring it out, and off we go. Because that's what improv and sketch teaches you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
so,
great.
and I think if you lead from that place, I got, Brendan, between Boom Chicago, that's a great place. And repetitions of finding that group of people and finding, sometimes it's the building, like I got blessed by the group that I got to work with at SNL. Like, we showed up and there were already pros there behind the scenes. And then there were pros already in front of the camera, Polar and Tina, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have, the people that come in, and it's like, yeah, you can, that's the pro leagues of it. Because every single person, from the set designer to the wardrobes to the hair and makeup, guys and gals, they're all remarkable, and they've all done it, and so they're just a fine oiled machine.
Yeah.
But then you keep that. Excuse me, what do you say?
The best of the best, really.
Yeah. In many ways, to the point where we take it for granted, as I think as viewers. You're just kind of like, oh, they just made up this. Oh, no one's asking Siri. But then when you're in your small collective of your group, then you do find those people that you ping pong with even more naturally. And I always say that it feels like, and you can meet anyone, they could be any age, any gender, any race, any orientation, does not matter, but you get that sense that we would have had fun as 8-year-olds on a playground.
Yeah, you got to tap into that energy for sure. Yeah. So how does that inform a scripted narrative show like this, where you're casting such a rich ensemble? Just generally speaking, what were you looking for in the audition room?
I think good acting, this is going to sound crazy. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know if Brendan knows this. I like watching auditions with the sound off. Once you hear what they sound like, then when it comes down to choices, because I have a theory personally, and it stems from a lot of plane travel, which I don't do anymore, because of, there's a pandemic. And I hope to do it again. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm off planes. I only travel by ship. But I, watching movies on the seat in front of you, like where you're kind of like listening to music and you're watching people. And if you can't tell if if you didn't really want anybody to be able to tell that they're watching a comedy with the sound off.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for people that have it in the eyes, that keep a little something back, that they're not just, it's not all presentational. And that's a big part of it. Also looking for an essence, not a type.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing. I know for me. Brendan, is there anything I'm blanking on, or?
First of all, point of order, just everyone watching knows, Jason does also eventually watch the auditions with the sound on.
100%.
Important to know. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I just think it's an interesting perspective to offer to.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever heard it, to be honest. I love it.
I think the other thing that you can't really get a sense of until you're in the callbacks is like, who's a good hang. We I don't know if this was luck or what, but once we got there and we'd all been working together for a while, we were sitting in our office one day and we just had the observation, like, there's no turkeys.
Yeah,
there's no turkeys. Everyone's game, everyone's up for it, everyone's fun to talk to and work with, and
everyone works hard.
It cannot be underrated.
Yeah, it really, I mean, it goes back, we were joking earlier about the manners thing, but it is, in the makeup trailer, we would have, every single person, from number one on the call sheet down to however many characters we had in the first season, 110, and you're talking about day players too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember towards the end of the run, like looking at it, I go, yeah, we went no turkeys. How about that? Knock on wood, and I think that stems also from the essence of the show. The vibe of the show is no turkeys. And if there are turkeys, they revealed themselves pretty quick,
Yeah.
So then you have to, move on from them. But on the cast wise, yeah. And we have an amazing casting director, a woman named Theo Park, who was recommended to us, I must say, and give a shout out to Allison Jones. I was like, Allison, who I've worked with a few times, most recently, I was in her, I was chatting with her because she casted Booksmart. And so I was like, we need, I don't think you can do this because we were over there, but who would you recommend? She goes, this Theo Park gal is great. And I think casting directors are, some of the true wizards and witches of show business, and they don't get enough praise. They're a special breed. And when you find one, like, they discover these people and then they move on, and someone else claims them. But it's a remarkable, because they see people with love. They see everybody that walks in there, they want them to get this job. They want someone to knock their socks off because that makes them look better. Mm-hmm. And so there's not a lot of jobs in the world that, that offer that, just part of its DNA. And so I've always grabbed, and we got, Allison let us, surprisingly, sometimes you ask for a recommendation, she's going to set us up to fail, right? Because she wants to look good. No,
right.
She's known for that.
Goddamn saint.
So craven. Craven.
Well, you're really speaking Backstage's language in terms of this casting director praise, so I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
I would have said that if we were on Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, right. That's for the next interview. Yeah. But just in our final minutes here, I do want to transition just into a couple audience questions. You were talking about how the vibe of this show really is no turkeys. We got a question sent in by, let's see, I just had it. By Emily Grace. She says, was there a character or a lesson that you wanted an audience to take away from the show as a whole? I love the no turkey vibe for the show. It's a nice show, as I said. Is there kind of a message to take to heart that you were zeroing in on?
I mean, there's tons.
Yeah, fair enough.
One of the main ones is, and we don't actually ever say this or anything, but don't judge a book by its cover. Like your first, what the conclusion you first draw about someone, which I guess you'd call it first impression, but it's something deeper than that in a way, is often informed merely by what you're bringing to it, and it will lead you to underestimating the full depth of the person you have so adjudged.
Yeah, that is a big one. Yeah, it's also don't allow yourself to be in those boxes. So sometimes a great coach is a great mentor, a great partner, is someone that sees more in you than you're allowing yourself to see in yourself. Sometimes your baggage, emotional, political, what have you, gets in the way of your intuition. And sometimes it takes an outsider, whether it be a therapist, a coach, a bartender, an Uber driver, like, why are you so sad? Like, am I? Or like, and to get you out of your head or see you from, like, shift your perspective a little bit. And so, yeah, so like what Rebecca does for Keely thought she was always just going to be this. And then Rebecca's like, have you ever thought about doing this? Like, and she's like, oh no, why? It's like, you should, I mean, I had a basketball coach in high school junior year that was like, hey, Sudeikis, there's no reason you can't be the best point guard in this league, in this conference. And I was like, really? I didn't, but he said it, and now you're thinking it. And now that thought becomes a thing that you either strive towards or otherwise. So be very careful with, how you treat people, because if you, the thing that we say in the writer's room all the time is that, and this is an improv mantra, that like the best idea with no support will always lose to the worst idea with full support.
Mm-hmm.
So like that, I think that comes down to, human beings too. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I'll take it. Those are two great answers to that question. Thank you. We got a question from A Maple. What are some of the funniest phrases you learned while over in Britain? Did you pick up any local vernacular?
You know what? Good. I mean, it's not funny necessarily, but I just like it when you have a good idea. They'll be like, "Yeah, it's a good shout. Good shout."
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Juno has one. Like, I think I wrote. When we write something, and we have a couple British writers, but it's all ears on deck. When we're shooting in production, because best idea wins, and so we allow the actors the space to. Anglicize. Am I saying that right? Anglicize. We wouldn't say it this way. Like, being a kid from Kansas, Higgins said "ma'am" like all throughout the pilot, and then the second we hear Jeremy Swift say "ma'am," and it sounds "mom," "mom," and it sounds like "mom." You're like, oh, we don't say this.
Yeah,
and
cut that.
sending the script to Rebecca Hall, who I'm friendly with, and she was like, I don't think we say "ma'am" as much, but I didn't understand why, and I was like, well, they can. It's all right. And then I heard, I was like, oh no, he's gonna call her Miss Weldon. Okay. Yeah. But the one that Juno does that I love in 107, when we go on our away game to like Liverpool to play Everton, I just had her say, hey, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go to the bathroom, or go to the toilet, is what they say over there, right? And she's like, my grandma used to say, I'm not gonna try to do her accent. But my grandma used to say, I'm gonna go spend a penny. I was like, yeah, that's fucking great. Yeah, go spend that penny, which I assume had something to do with pay toilets or I don't know, maybe her grandma used to pay someone to piss in her mouth. I don't know.
I might borrow that one myself. Not for the piss in the mouth, but just for the.
Hey man, live your life, baby. It's 2020. It's up for grabs.
Awesome. Well, as a final question here, just as we're wrapping up, again, Backstage is all about.
Wait, hold on. Brendan is a sponge for this stuff.
Brendan, weigh in.
Well, I was gonna say there's one that I had that I learned in Scotland years earlier that is far too filthy, but Jason has broken that Rubicon.
Glass
but
ceiling.
My favorite Scottish insult is "smell your ma."
Oh,
Just you can't say that in Kansas City or Chicago.
Yeah. I don't know if you can say that on a Backstage webinar, but here we are. So
first lead ever on a webinar.
Yeah. Well,
I am seeing one, because this is important, because we did use it pretty colloquially, but someone asked, what is a turkey? A turkey is just like a pain in the butt.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amanda, for the question. That is a turkey. But just to wrap this up with you guys, Backstage is all about the early career folks in the industry. Would love to hear both of you sound off on the advice that you would give your younger self when you were first starting out. What's something that you've learned along the way, your journey over these last few years, that you wish you knew back then?
For the record, I had this being 45 minutes. Is it 30 minutes?
Oh, I did have it down for 30, but we could push to 45.
Well, no, I'm incredibly busy. No, I'm kidding. But
I think the audience would like if we push a few more minutes. Yeah, go longer.
I mean, might as well. Here we are. I mean, we're giving long answers. I know, we're loquacious. Hopefully it's informative, but I'd feel bad for only answering 4 questions.
Well, no, this is perfect for us. Okay, so before we get to that interview capping, advice to younger self, keep that in the back of your mind percolating. I'll pull up another audience question here. From
You see all these other ones, these Q&A ones too?
yes, yeah. Do you want to pull from some of these, Jason? Are you in there?
Should we should do that. Let's just talk about it for the next 15 minutes and then you ask.
What a cool feature.
Yeah.
Wow, look at all these questions. That's so neat that you put those here.
Yeah, I forget that you guys can see these too. Sound off with whatever.
Oh, here we go. T Brisbane. This makes sense. Like, Jason, how did you get so good at doing your Running Man dance? Same way you get to Carnegie Hall, baby. Practice. No, really, that's I'm 45, and so in the early 90s, that hip hop, Kid and Play, House Party, Yo MTV Raps. I was, hip hop is culture. Culture, is different things, and so I was, one of the few white fellas on a predominantly black basketball team, and by good fortune, watched my teammates, get down, and we went to go see movies when we'd go play out of state and whatnot, and so yeah, you get down by trying to keep up, and that's all that is. Brennan, you got one you want to answer?
Did you play soccer ever? I think I can speak for both of us when I say no.
I played kindergarten through 4th grade.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Not well.
A lot more than me.
But Brendan, but ourselves and a bunch of people in the cast have made up for it over quarantine by playing a lot of FIFA.
Yeah.
A lot of jokes and story have come out of. I keep a notepad while it's like me, Brendan, Joe. I mean, who else we got? We got Tahib, who plays Sam Obasanya, Christo, who plays Danny Rojas, Brett Goldstein plays, Paul Cripps, who's our production designer.
Billy, who plays Colin.
Yeah.
Do you do the Fantasy Premier League or anything like that in addition to FIFA?
I do a bit of that, but what's great about the FIFA is like we can do it over headset, and so we're socializing together even with these guys who are in London or Mexico, for that matter. And that's been a really cool way to sort of stay in touch.
Yeah.
But yeah, we outside of kindergarten through 4th grade, we never played it. We did not live in societies that supported or honored soccer until we lived in Amsterdam. And then in Amsterdam, then it was like, well, this is amazing. And we've been lied to all our lives. And as sports fans already, if you're not a sports fan, maybe you won't get into soccer. But soccer, as it turns out, has stolen at least a piece of my heart. But it was very late in life that it started to do that.
Gio Rodriguez asked a follow-up question about how many actors, actresses have you cast from the theory of watching with the sound off? I do want to speak towards that because I don't want to be a misnomer that, like, I do listen to it with the sound because obviously it's an audio visual medium, but it's a mindset. It's just there's a level. You see it in the eyes, like you'll see. I guess this is important, and I don't mean to sound like I'm pontificating, and I don't know shit, but in my opinion, acting is less about the talking and more about the being, and a big part of being is listening. Like, if you think acting is all about talking, I can tell you right now, you're a shitty actor. I remember hearing this story. I dated this gal who used to write books and lyrics for musicals in New York, and she was an NYU kid. I asked her about what was the best audition like you ever saw, and she said, I remember this one gal went in for her audition to get into like the Tisch School of the Arts at NYU. She sat on a stool, came out on stage, and everybody's coming in and just soliloquy after like there, and just bawling and yelling and all this. And this girl came in, sat down, and then just silently, like over 2 minutes, just started to like weep. And then the person like called, like, okay, that's it. She goes, I'm sorry, you didn't start. She goes, you didn't do your monologue. And she goes, oh no, I was just listening to one. And that woman is Bradley Cooper. So I'm just saying. No, but that's a real story. And that knocked my socks off because I'm like, oh yeah. So yeah, we listen to it with the sound on, but before you play it back, watch your audition without the sound on and just see if you fucking believe yourself. Because you'll get caught up in the words the same way you're maybe getting caught up in my words now. But really what's more compelling is like, why is he sitting in the dark?
I see a question here from Martha A. Bradshaw about that college application process. So maybe take that to heart. Do the listening to the monologue trick in the audition room.
One question here that we've sort of half answered already, but I'll extend on. How did you find the awesome actors to portray your characters? From Lisa King. Besides the great Theo Park, and this is an advertisement for just being nice to people. So Theo put together a list of of some really amazing English actresses for me and Jason we flew out to London, we watched the auditions, and me and Jason came back with a head full of steam, like to the writers' room, like, guys, we found it. We got 2 or 3 people here you were going to love. We were super excited about them. And they were great, but the room just did not respond to them. Like seeing them on footage was different than being in the room. And I don't know about you, Jason, but I was a little bit like crestfallen, frankly, because I was really gung ho about some of these people. And,
I wasn't as crestfallen, but I feel you.
And then shortly after, talking with an actor we know him, a guy named Todd Stashwick out of Chicago, and just shooting the shit about life and stuff, and this thing we just did, and we're having trouble finding our lead. And first thing he says is, Hannah Waddingham. What? Hannah Waddingham. Who's Hannah Waddingham? You've seen her on Game of Thrones. I worked with her on 12 Monkeys. She's great. She's perfect. She's what you want. Hannah Waddingham. And he hung up. And he was right. And it came down to not only her being talented, but him having had a positive experience with her not being a turkey. And as history has shown, she ended up being flat out perfect for it. And that all worked out just real well.
Like almost built in my head when I met her, and the fact that she's, like same height but taller and heels, like she was really taken by the fact that like it didn't sweat me at all, because I was like, well, it wouldn't sweat Ted, it's fucking great, so that's another thing. Don't let this fucking business put you in a box. They don't do blank, they don't like blank. Nah, bullshit that you're just giving yourself an excuse to half-ass your option, your choice. You're like shots on goal. Like if anybody's asking her, how do you get better? Shots on goal. Audition, just go in and like for everything, why not? Like it's all practice. It's all performance. It's all an opportunity. I mean, and now you don't even have to go in. Now you don't even have to waste gas. I mean, like gas money. It's fantastic.
Now you don't have to get nervous in the waiting room.
Yeah, exactly.
These people that look like
Yeah, be like, oh wait, I saw that guy on Two Broke Girls or whatever. It's like now you're just like you don't even know what they're doing. Everybody's into it. If you see any too, I forgot your name. I'm so sorry.
Ben.
Ben, thank you, Ben.
And Brendan. This is Brendan here.
For a little while.
Do you have any advice for a writer's writing scripts? I'm 11 years old. Well, first off, those are bad words that we've been using. I'm not gonna. 11-year-olds are grown-ups these days. Who am I kidding? If you can use the internet, you're a grown-up. Writing your first script, just finish it. Don't just keep writing it. Finish it. Don't brag about writing your first script. Brag about you're finishing your 9th script. All right.
And the subset of that is, do not judge it while you're doing it. Do not judge it while you're doing it. And I learned this lesson too late, frankly. Do not judge it while you're doing it. Do not go back and fix things, that are 20 pages ago while you're already 20 pages past that. You'll do that later. Hustle to that finish line. Get the thing done. It's a lot easier to change a thing to change and improve a thing that's already finished, as opposed to something you're in the middle of the process of.
Mm-hmm.
Also, be intentional with what you're writing. Like, know why you're writing it, know what it means. You're not just trying to fill up pages. There's plenty of people filling up pages. Like, write something that matters to you. How important is the study of improvisation when it comes to comedy and even drama performances? The study of improvisation is merely, at its root, at its core, I believe, is the study of listening. So it is wickedly important. And if you think it's just about saying clever shit, once again, I promise you, you're not as good as you think. And you'll be really good in improv shows, but improv shows don't eventually stop making your parents proud. All right? Because tough to make a living doing improv shows. Good muscle to keep up, but if you do improvise, go ahead.
Sorry, the listening thing is huge, and it's why I think improv is a class that everyone should take, whether you're trying to be in comedy or not. Like to just be in a place where you are fully accepting and hearing every single offer that comes your way, and yes-anding that. I mean, it's a muscle. It's a muscle that you can learn, and you can get those reps in that class, and it affects not just your work but your life, because you become a better conversationalist and a better person to talk to and listen with and hang with.
Yeah, you'll sleep with better looking people than you deserve if you
That's
become,
what it boils down to.
you know.
If you take anything away from this 45-minute session, it's that.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and I just mean sleep with. I don't mean make love to. I just mean
Oh
share.
yeah, that should have been clear.
Yeah, that you have to be married to do that, right,
We-
Noah? 11-year-old.
Yeah, we do have 11-year-olds here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this question from Martha Bradshaw. How do you handle rejections for something you really want without becoming bitter or losing your self-worth? Obviously, that's something all actors go through at one point or another.
Ooh. Oh, you mean about in the world of acting? Oh, that I don't know. I've never failed. I don't know.
Oh, I have.
Yeah. This is one for Brendan.
No, but I mean, I don't know exactly how. I do know that, especially when I moved to Los Angeles, you're coming here and people have already been going through the industry, for so long, and they're all in different places with it, whatever. And just, you can smell the bitterness like right away. And you can see how it is damaging people and damaging the way they are or are not receptive to the world around them, professionally or not professionally. I mean, I guess part of my answer to this will be in the answer to the very last question, but I can only say that you have identified something very important. You have to guard against bitterness if you're going to do this, because a big part of the job is, for everyone but Jason, a regular stream of rejection. It's what you have signed up for. So if this is what you signed up for, and there's only so much, crying in your beer you can do. You can cry in one beer, and then you got to put that beer away because you're going to have other opportunities. So focus on those.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Yeah, yeah. How do you handle rejection for something you really want without becoming? Know that there's always something else too. Just because you want that thing doesn't mean you deserve it. Doesn't mean it belongs to you. I really, really want this. It's like, I really, really don't give a shit. Like, I've really, really wanted stuff too, and it doesn't work out. It's how you respond to that. That's another theme of the show. It's like, there is evil in the world. There are losses in the world. How do you respond to that? The president does something silly. Are you going to spend your whole day like tweeting about it? Or are you going to go make something? You're going to go help someone, like, how are you going to respond to it? What's the proactive move? And so, you got to just build up that callus and just keep trucking. Go to a soup kitchen. You know what I mean?
I love it. Looking through here, is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I could do a speed round. We got a handful of the actors, with all those actors being British, a lot of them, are just naturally good at soccer because it's in their blood. But like Danny Rojas, Cristo, he played professionally in Mexico. Phil Dunster, Jamie Tart does have, soccer chops. We look for that, but then like Brett Goldstein is not a good soccer player, and yet that's a great example of, do the real work is the acting and the listening and like the being present, and like movie magic can handle everything else. Like, I don't know if people even know this, but like, Michael J. Fox, he doesn't know how to ride a skateboard.
Brett's casting is kind of a cool story. Like, we were writing in LA, he was on the writing staff, and then he had to leave before we finished writing the season because he had his own show, Soulmates, which is now on AMC, to go do. But before he left, he surreptitiously recorded an audition and we were just starting to look at footage of guys to play Roy. And so just on his own, he self-taped, and he was amazing. And he might not have been the most soccer player looking of the guys we saw, but he had the essence, he had the soul, he was hilarious and real. And that's not happening if he did not take appropriate initiative. There's inappropriate initiative you can take in your life. Don't do that. But this was appropriate, and we're all lucky it happened.
But it's because it spoke to him. He's a very humble, modest guy. I would recommend checking out his podcast. Brendan has a great episode. Hannah Waddingham has a great episode. Pat Oswald just did one. But like, and when you hear him in his regular day to day, you'll be like, oh my God, that's Roy Kent. Like, that's like, you'll be like, I didn't even know he was that great of an actor. I just thought he was that dude because he has such a stern face. But he's a sweetie pie. He's such a gentle soul. And the part spoke to him. Like, so when you read something, like I did a movie called Kodachrome, with me and Ed Harris. I like Ed Harris played my dad. And one of the neatest things was when I was approached by that, and I read the script, I was like, oh, I love this story. And then my name came across Ed Harris's, desk or what have you, ranch probably, right? Come on. He was like, oh yeah, I like him. To just hear that, you're like, oh my goodness, that's enough. But then the director didn't necessarily, only knew me and from the perspective of SNL or like We're the Millers or something like that. And so then, and again, this is a little bit different. But I think it can happen on any level. You go try to meet with the person or speak with the person. It's the same way I went about, always trying to get a job at Barnes and Noble. It's like, I just want to get to that interview stage because my resume sucks. Like I'm a community college dropout. My favorite book was like, I don't know, whatever, I don't even know what it was, some Garfield book, and yet if I got to that interview stage, so it was about meeting with that director and being like, here's what I think about the script. Here's what I feel about it. Here's why I think I match up. And then you just kiss it, bless it. You shot your shot. And then it came back around and I got to do it. And I remember Sean Levy being like, hey, I thought it was really cool how you went after that, and so you can do that as an actor. If you can see it in your head and you can feel it in your heart, unless you have a resume that shows that, a lot of people just want you to do what you've always done. And to play the parts the way people have always played them or whatnot. And we mess with that on the show all the time. We want someone that looks that part, but then we're gonna split them up and dice them up and turn them into a real human being for you, and yet leave a little space so that you can put a little yourself in there. It's like that's the jam.
Yeah, I mean that's a great story. I mean, you gotta once you get the opportunity to shoot your shot, that's also what you're preparing for on the back end the whole time. So you got to be ready to jump on that. Yeah. Sounds like you worked out.
Kira Perez has a question that's close to my heart. Brendan, did you really read Inverting the Pyramid? I own Inverting the Pyramid both on my iPad.
Oh, yep, there you go.
And I bought the updated edition. So, yes.
There we go. All right.
No hardcover, no first edition.
No, I got on it late, I will admit.
Start gift idea. All right.
All right, guys. Well, how are we feeling? Is this time to call?
Pieces. Yeah, that's it. I got a life to live. Come on, Ben, let's go.
Well, Jason and Brendan, it's been great to have you for this interview. Really such a treat. Big fan of both yours and the show. Thank you, everyone who's sitting in our audience today for joining us and writing in some great questions. Made my job easy at the end there.
Do you want to do your last question from before, or
have you been thinking on it?
I've been percolating.
All right, let's do it. So what is that piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Well, for me, it is also feel yourself. And for the times when you are not achieving or working enough as you might want, feel yourself. And this goes to the fighting bitterness as well. It sounds cheesy, but have a hobby. If you like fill yourself with that, distract yourself, get away from it completely, go hiking, play obscure German card games, or create things, just constantly be writing something. And again, it's just about finishing it and getting the reps and getting the habit of completing a script or a piece or something, because even if this one sucks, well, you've made the next one better just by doing this one. So fill yourself, not let yourself get bogged down in this. And because you'll fill your heart and you'll fill yourself, and therefore you'll be more attractive as someone to cast or work with, because you haven't been bogged down in this.
That's great. Jason, anything to leave us with?
Yeah. What is what the question is specifically?
The piece of advice that you would give your younger self.
Oh, yeah. Watch out for speed traps on 87th and Lackman.
Important, practical advice, really.
Hey, my dad got really pissed because I didn't pay my tickets. Cops showed up at our house. It was a whole thing. No, I mean, again, it's a weird advice to give at this time. It breaks my heart that people aren't doing improv classes. I really believe, I joke around, but I mean it. Fund the arts. Don't give it all to the Sacklers. Also go see shows. That's what I'll say. Mm-hmm. Go I am a product of my mom taking me to see shows. When I moved to Chicago, when you get to intern at IO or rest in peace or Second City, you get to go see shows for free. And I did that non-stop. Watch as much as you can and have an opinion about it, because really the job is mostly about having an opinion. That's I always say, that we're not being paid in the writer's room to type. You're paid for your opinion. Like, what do you think about the world? What do you think is funny? What do you think is sad? What do you think about good people? How should you respond to this situation? And if you don't offer your opinion, then you are not making a living. You are taking up space.
Yeah. And that sensibility is only built by being a sponge in a way too. So you got to get out there.
So it's like so that's two things. Have an opinion. Now, don't feel you got to pontificate, and you don't, but have an opinion about it, I think is an important thing. And that's something, I don't know. I think my younger self did always have an opinion, unfortunately. Having an opinion looks better when you're 45 than when you're like 25.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I was a bona fide turkey.
Yeah. When you're 25, take the opinion of the 45-year-olds. How about that?
Yeah. But be choosy about which ones you listen to.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been so great. Thank you both for your time, and congrats on the series. I hope to see more of it once you're in production in January. I can't wait.
Yeah,
but
too.
Everyone have a good night. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, thank you for all your questions. See you now.